Husband said his friends cheated on their wives during group trip. Did he also cheat? Like the title says. My husband went on a trip with a group of men. Many of these are friends of a mutual friend on the trip. He knew 3 of the guys beforehand and met the rest on the trip. They went to a place known for sex tourism. Well, it's about halfway into the trip and my husband FaceTimes me telling me all the dirty and grotesque things happening on it. The problem is that he didn't seem uncomfortable. He told me almost like it was no big deal, when in reality it definitely is a big deal. Most of the men are married with kids and one has a long-term girlfriend. Of the group of men, my husband said he and one other guy were the only ones who didn't take up the offer of hookers from their tour and security guy. That term is used loosely as he was also the guy offering them party favors and women. I find it hard to believe that out of everything going on over there, he and only one other guy didn't partake. I love my husband very much, and I want to trust him, but maybe he was saying this to try and hide anything he did? My husband told me this on the condition that he does not want something to come out later and he will be implicated by association. He felt that I should know what was happening on this trip and he can't risk our relationship. He also said I cannot inform any of the wives and they would know it was him who broke the bro code. That makes me even more suspicious at the fact that he was also doing it. If no one wanted the information getting out, then why would he tell me? The only reason I could think of is to get on my good side if the information came out later. They all seemed so comfortable cheating on their spouses and he said it didn't seem like it was their first time. Someone we know very closely and wouldn't imagine doing something like this also participated, which doesn't help my husband's situation. I am so conflicted and hurt by these people. I will be seeing these wives and girlfriend at events and some of them frequently. How can I not tell them? I feel as a woman, I would want to be informed. However, my husband said it is not our business as to what their marriages are like. He told me that there is no way their wives don't have an inkling, but does he really think I don't have one about him? Before he went to this destination, we looked it up and I mentioned to my husband that because this is what people go there to do, I'm slightly uncomfortable and his assurance was that he would openly communicate with me and let me know everything that happened. Which he did. I just don't know how to respect these people and continue being friends with them as well as not spilling the beans. If I am cold with them or don't interact with them, they will know something is up as I'm usually bubbly and outgoing. Well, as expected, we go to one of these events where all the wives and girlfriend will be, and the whole time I feel so out of place just because of the information I knew. Then, the girlfriend tells me something that made me really question my husband. She brought up the trip, and said how lovely it was that my husband came up with the idea to go to that location, and how much fun they had. This made my thoughts spiral out of control. Could all these allegations that I made up about my husband in my mind actually be true? Why would he suggest out of all people to go to a place that is known for this type of stuff? It has truly taken over any other thought in my brain. After she said that I told her I had to excuse myself and just went to the bathroom and sobbed. It is later in the night and I am currently writing this in bed as he falls asleep next to me. How do I confront him about this? I feel as though with me bringing it up, all he would have to do is say the girlfriend is lying, and how am I supposed to refute that? I don't have any evidence against my claims, and he did everything I asked him to do on that trip. Have open communication, and keep in contact, both of which he did, or did he? My sister held a sleepover tonight but no one came. My sister invited 5 girls from the summer camp she goes to for a sleepover tonight and she was really excited. She is a shy person and extremely quiet but wanted to try and break out of her comfort zone this summer. She picked 5 girls from her class and all of them said they would come. She did not pick 5 random girls to invite to a sleepover. They are in the same grade and she has known all of them since first grade. They have gone to each other's birthday parties. I helped her clean her room and she picked out a movie for them to watch and I have never seen her so excited. Her friends were supposed to come at 5 p.m. tonight but by 7 p.m. she was starting to wonder where they were. With every minute that passed I saw her mood change and she started to give up and went to her room. At 9 p.m. my mom called one of the parents but they said they were out of town and forgot about the sleepover. They were lying because my mom works with the mother of that family and my mom saw that she posted that her family was at a baseball game on Facebook. I went to check on my sister and her eyes were red and she was laying under her covers. I laid down next to her and she was telling me how dumb she was for thinking people wanted to go to her sleepover. She just wants to fit in but for some reason she can't find someone who wants to hang out with her. I got her to come out from the covers and we ate the pizza my mom brought but I have never seen my sister so defeated. My mom and I don't know why she can't make any friends. She's into the same things the girls in her grade are and she isn't considered weird by the other kids in her class. She is shy but her social skills are fine and she gets along with people so it hurts to see her being alone. I told my girlfriend what happened and we agreed to have a sleepover with my sister tomorrow night but I wish my sister would find a friend who actually wants to be around her. She's a good person and I want her to feel like people enjoy being around her. Update, Saturday night, my girlfriend and I cleaned up my sister's room while she was out with my mom. We got her favorite movie and made chocolate chip cookies. She wasn't really in an energetic mood because of yesterday so we just sat in the backyard and played board games for a couple of hours. Then we went inside and all 3 of us watched the movie and went to sleep. She was really appreciative of my girlfriend and I especially my girlfriend. We have been together for 5 years and my sister and girlfriend have become pretty close. My girlfriend calls her a mini version of her. My sister is happy and that's all that matters. As for the parents, the mom who used the out-of-town excuse when she was at a baseball game stuck with that excuse. The other 4 all said they got the days mixed up even though the date and time was above the recent text messages. It doesn't matter though, my sister will find her way. This was a learning experience for all of us. Also, I saw some comments saying the other parents were not required to give an explanation why their child did not attend the sleepover. They aren't required to but letting a 12-year-old girl and her mom know their child is not able to come is the courteous thing to do. Hopefully one day she will find her group as she grows up. Has anyone lived in the walls of your house when you didn't notice? When I was in my very early 20s my mom and I shared a house. We had a stalker. The first night we stayed in the house, someone got into our car. My mom happened to come outside, saw him, set off the panic alarm on the car and scared him away. My backpack had been in the car and he dumped the contents into the floorboard of the car but left the paycheck that I had just cashed, all the cash still in a bank envelope. The police said it seemed that they were searching for something specific and really questioned me about what that might be. But I have no idea. Police were able to get a partial palm print off the car but had no matches in their system. My mom and I were out doing yard work and found a phone cord under our deck. It connected into the phone box on the outside of the house. We called the phone company out and they said that they figured that someone had been using the cord to hook up a phone and lay under our deck and listen in on our phone calls. They removed the cord and put a lock on the phone box. We also frequently heard someone walking outside our windows at night. We would call the police and they would drive by but not see anyone. Another time all of the light bulbs from our exterior lights were removed. Once we came home and my mom realized that a pair of earrings and a stuffed animal that had been sitting on her dresser were missing. There was no sign of anyone having broken in, but those items never turned up and we were sure someone had been in the house. We frequently heard this weird thump and squeak noise that we could never figure out what caused it. Another time my mom was raking leaves at the front of the house and saw something in one of our bushes. It was a voice-activated recorder, wrapped in black plastic and tied to the trunk of one of our bushes. The recorder was tapped into our phone line. Someone had gotten under our house, drilled a hole through our foundation and ran a phone cord through the hole, into the recorder in the bush. We have no idea how our neighbors didn't see or hear this happening. The police, who were well aware of the issues by this point, now seem to realize that this was a serious, scary problem. They sent several officers out to investigate the recorder. We were in the house talking to an officer and heard the thump and squeak noise that we always heard. We told the officer that's the noise we can't identify. As it turns out, at that moment an officer was crawling under the house and had bumped a pipe. He was able to repeat the noise. The police figured that it was almost impossible to get into or out of the crawl space under our house without bumping that pipe. And we heard that noise a lot. The police think that whoever it was getting into the crawl space and lying under the house listening to us. He had been living there for months just listening, and when I found that out it really creeped me out. We put a cover over the entrance and glued it down. We put sequins in a certain order in the glue so that we could tell if it had been removed and re-glued. It was all insanely creepy. We eventually moved. I moved in with my boyfriend in a second-floor apartment. I felt so much safer with people all around and figured that the stalking issue was behind me. Not long after we moved in I noticed that our caller ID wasn't working. I called the phone company and they informed me that a Mr. Kramer had called and requested that the caller ID service be turned off on our phone. I had a meltdown. I was so upset, first off because the phone company let some random person make changes on our phone line, and secondly because apparently the issues were not behind me and they were planning something and didn't want the caller ID to show up. I put a password on our account so no changes could be made without it. And that was the last issue we ever had. I really think the caller ID issue was possibly unrelated. Maybe someone was accidentally making changes to the wrong account or something? Either way it was very creepy, though I have to admit, if the person had wanted to do something bad to either one of us there were surely plenty of times that could have been done. It really seems they just wanted to observe us and scare us. I am divorcing my husband because of his Reddit account and a bag of chips. Obviously it goes without saying it wasn't just the bag of chips but hot Cheetos were my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. I had already had the terms of separation drawn up 6 months ago when during a heated argument he said, "We don't have kids, you should be thankful it's only me you clean up after." I kept hearing it in my head. I should be thankful for cleaning up behind a grown man 10 years older than me? He apologized the next day in detail and told me why what he said was wrong and that he doesn't believe it. But maybe it's just out of my character, but I don't think the things you say in those moments are just hurtful words. Little bit of truth in them. And then I found his Reddit account a few days ago. I accidentally saw the username when he showed me a screenshot. I tried not to memorize it, and it took me 2 days to get the courage to look. In between the comments on NSFW subreddits were complaints about me, and posts about me too. One post he'd be ripped to shreds and told he was a piece of crap. Reading those comments made me realize I was nothing but a fucking idiot to think love can fix things. I was 20 when I met him and he was 35. I thought people were being dramatic or annoying about our age gap because my single father who raised me didn't have an issue. But then I realized he was just the same type of fucking creep. It was almost like my father pre-groomed me to accept certain behavior to make it easier for the other men in my life. I'm getting off topic, but I came home early today after a rough day at work and finding out my direct reporting manager had been murdered by her husband. Then I walked in the door to see my lazy, filthy one. I told him what happened to her. I started to cry. He did not console me. He said, "We don't know what made him do that, let's wish both of them luck and move on with our day." Wish her luck? The fucking dead lady? I tried to convince myself he just didn't pay attention. That soothed me for about an hour. Until I was in the middle of making dinner and he complained that it was already 6:45 p.m. I told him he shouldn't be that hungry yet, he just ate half a bag of chips and left them on the table. So instead of A, helping me finish dinner, B, apologizing and waiting silently and patiently, C, finishing the bag of chips, or D, just laughing it off, he threw the bag of chips at me. 7 years together, 4 married. And he's never done anything that downright rude, because low self-esteem aside that's something that won't fly with me either way. The chips landed all over the floor I had just mopped and swept. Whatever glare I gave him, it was enough to make him grab the broom in 30 seconds. It wasn't enough to make him at least check that it was all swept up and vacuum after. So when I finished dinner and brought our plates to the dinner table, thinking, wow, I really spoil him. The entire time we've dated, I've always made his plates and brought them right to him. No one has ever done that for me. And I stepped on a chip. It didn't hurt or anything, but I screamed. Not sure why. I just couldn't take it anymore. So, I ran to the home office and came back out with the papers and pen. Put them in front of his dinner plate and walked out while he was yelling my name. I'm killing a burger and fries in my car right now and realizing I have to start all over. My life is done. My love for him is too. I hope I don't cave. I hope I don't let him convince me. I hope if I start to change my mind I come back and read this post so that I understand this is not a heated decision, this is something I need to do if I ever want anything like a real fucking life. People who have had run-ins with serial killers, what's your story? It was 1977. I had taken time off work to have a baby and stay home with her. But I still needed an income, so my mother had hired my younger sister and me to do the dirty, back-breaking work in her shop while she took care of her first infant granddaughter. My sister and I were working at our mom's antique store one summer day. Mom had just gotten a truckload of European oak furniture that needed to be cleaned and polished, had the handles screwed on and so forth. A nice-looking young man came into the store and started talking to my sister, who was 17 at the time. He introduced himself as Ted Smith, and we laughed and said we must be related as Mom's maiden name was Smith also. He chatted both of us up, but focused on Sis for the most part. He purchased an armoire, but said he'd have to go get his truck, since at the moment he was driving his VW Bug, an old VW Bug. He then asked my sister and me if we wanted to go out to dinner that night with him. We were sweaty and dirty from work, I had a baby to care for, and Sis already had a boyfriend, so we said, thanks, but no thanks, Ted. He asked me to ride with him to get his truck so he could drop his Bug off at the auto shop for repairs, but by that point I had to get home to my infant, right away, because I was still nursing her and I thought my breasts were going to begin leaking at any minute. However, he wouldn't give up trying to get one or both of us away from the shop. He said he could come back about 10 p.m. that evening for his armoire and asked whether one or both of us would be there. We replied, no, we close the shop at 6, and we both have places to be tonight. He was persistent. How about tomorrow night? No, we close at 6 o'clock, except on Saturdays, when we close at 4 o'clock. He asked whether one of us could meet him early in the morning, like at 5:30 a.m., but neither of us wanted to. He was getting to be a bit creepy and Sis and I were eye-rolling at each other. Eventually, he said he was sorry but he couldn't buy the armoire if we couldn't be flexible. We hated to give up the sale, but after he had been there for 2 hours, we thought he was just looking and taking up our time. We still had a lot of work to do on the furniture that had just arrived in the shop. Finally, we just wanted to finish our work and go home. At 6 p.m., as we were leaving, his VW Bug was parked outside and he asked us whether we wanted to go for coffee. He especially wanted my sister to go. We said, thanks, Ted, but no thanks, like we said earlier, we have plans, but he continued to be insistent. Finally I said, Sis, let's go, I'll take you home. Even though she had her car there, for some reason I didn't want to leave her to drive home alone with this guy around. So he drove off in his Bug and we really didn't think of it again. Until the next year, a picture of him appeared in headlines and in newspapers. Ted Bundy, it still sends chills up my spine, writing this, and Sis and I talk about it occasionally. We were two lucky young women that day. If either of us had agreed to go, we would have been roped and murdered like the at least 30 other women Bundy kidnapped. As a teacher, what is the saddest thing you found out about one of your students? One of my students confessed her brothers had been sexually harassing her. I've been a professional math tutor/business consultant who has been an autistic math savant for all of my life. As such, I am not bound by the same laws that pastors, medical professionals, teachers and many other professionals are bound by when it comes to dealing with children who may have been harassed. However, I generally use the same position as them. Many years ago I was informed of this by one of my precious students who was at that time 14 and in the 8th grade. She was a delightful child who always had a big smile. One evening as we met for math lessons I noticed bruising on her arms and she was having a hard time sitting in the chair. I asked what was going on and she started crying. She leaned over and whispered to me that her brothers and their friends had been sexually assaulting her for about a year and a half. The most recent weekend had been the worst yet. Her brother had gotten into some money trouble with the local bookie and had used her the previous 3 days as a cash cow. He told her to not make plans for the next weekend because she would be helping him for the weekend. I asked her for the names for her 3 brothers and all his friends who had participated in her assault. Using a small recording device I asked her to give me details about the guys. I also asked her to give me the names the guys had used to refer to each other. I told her I would handle it and she had no need to worry any further. I also asked her if anyone else knew what was going on with her brothers. She told me some names of others who had been involved, including a group of young women who would have used/abused her on a previous weekend. I'm viewed by people who know me as a gentle giant who tends to look like a biker's nightmare with a Wookiee appearance. Chewie is one of my nicknames. She asked that I not hurt her brothers. I promised her that I would never meet her brother, but I had some friends who would show them a proper road to travel on. That same evening I had a meeting at my club's house. When I left, each of my brothers on 2 wheels had a list of perps to have a chat with. By the weekend each of her harassers had been admitted to local hospitals for orthopedic surgery, physical rehab, neuroservices, tendon/ligament repair, skin replacement and torn/burned scalps. Urology repair was needed on every one of them. Dental services and facial reconstruction surgeries were in universal need. Because of scrotal damages each of the men were now unable to breed, get an erection, or father children. It seems that when testicles are removed that this is the expected outcome. Not much different than gelding a horse. Broken/missing fingers and hands mean they wouldn't be using their fingers to harass another little girl. The city where all this happened never bothered to look into whether there had been any crimes against these men. The DA did receive a copy of the tape of my student's testimony. She was removed from her family and testified in each case against her attackers who didn't just plea out. My name was never mentioned. Eldest brother died in prison 2 years later, followed 3 years later by the baby brother and 5 years later by the middle brother. My young student is now grown with 3 beautiful daughters and 2 handsome little sons. Her kids call me Papa and are as sweet as their mom. Her hubby calls me Dad since his died many years ago.